Okay, picture this. You're thinking elementary school, right? Kids running around, normal day.
Hmm.
But then a parent hears something. And it's not just kids being kids, it's talk of a plot. A really chilling plot, apparently involving fifth graders.
Yeah.
So today we're going to dig into this really unsettling incident out of Surprise, Arizona. A group of 10 and 11-year-olds accused of planning to murder a classmate.
It's one of those stories that just immediately makes you stop and think. It really challenges how we see childhood, what can be going on beneath the surface.
Absolutely. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack the details. We've got the police report, news coverage. We'll look at what happened, what the alleged reasons were, and some really starkly different reactions from the kids involved.
Right. The goal here is for you, the listener, to get a really solid understanding of the specifics. It's a complex, unusual case.
Exactly. We want you to walk away well-informed about this specific event, understand the key facts without getting lost in, too much information. So let's start at the beginning. How did this whole thing even surface?
Well, it seems it came to light on October 1st, 2024. A parent, their child, had apparently overheard this group talking about their plans. They alerted the school.
The Legacy Traditional School in Surprise, Arizona.
That's the one. And that alert, that initial heads up from the parent was absolutely critical.
And the school's reaction.
Immediate.
Yeah.
From the reports, it sounds like they took it very seriously right away. They told the students involved and their parents to come back the next morning.
For an investigation.
Exactly. No waiting around. Which, in situations like this, that quick response is vital. Shows they were following safety protocols and not dismissing it.
Okay, so they start investigating. What about the why, the motive? I mean, we're talking about fifth graders.
Yeah, and this is where it gets particularly jarring. The police report points to a relationship issue. And we should probably stress the quotes around relationship given their age.
Right, like a close friendship, maybe puppy love, that sort of thing.
Probably. So one of the accused students, a girl, was apparently, let's say, involved with the boy who was the target.
The victim.
The intended victim, yes. And she felt he had cheated on her in some way. The report is quite blunt. It says she hated him and wanted him dead.
Wow. Hated him and wanted him dead. That's intense language for a 10 or 11-year-old.
It is intense, though, kids that age can feel emotions very strongly.
Yeah.
Perceived betrayals in friendships can feel enormous, almost like adult conflicts to them.
True, but the leap from feeling betrayed to wanting someone dead and planning it, that feels like a different level entirely.
Oh, absolutely. That's what makes this so concerning. It moves way beyond typical playground drama into something much darker. It really makes you wonder about how kids are processing conflict these days.
And the plan itself. The details are quite disturbing. This conversation overheard during lunch on October 1st, discussing how to end him.
Yeah, the specifics are chilling. The alleged plan was to lure the boy into a bathroom and then stab him in the stomach, fatally.
Good grief.
But it didn't stop there. The planning apparently included measures to cover it up.
Like what?
Like wearing gloves so they wouldn't leave fingerprints, and forging a suicide note.
To make it look like he did it to himself.
Exactly. That level of premeditation, the understanding of forensics like fingerprints, the idea of staging a suicide, it's deeply troubling for kids this young.
Where does that even come from? Is it media exposure or just a really extreme outlier situation?
It's hard to say for sure. It could be a mix of things, media they consume, things they overhear, maybe even distorted ideas picked up from peers. It's definitely not typical. But it shows how these dark ideas can sometimes take hold in a group, especially if there's a strong shared negative feeling driving it.
So the police get involved, they start interviewing the students. Did they all tell the same story?
Not exactly. Their accounts showed different levels of involvement, or at least how seriously they claimed to be taking it.
Okay, like what?
Well, one girl said she sort of wandered into the conversation while they were discussing the plot. She claimed she initially made jokes about it.
Jokes about that.
That's what she said. But then she insisted she was just joking and started to back off when the others started to get serious.
So it started as a joke but went too far defense.
Kind of. Yeah, highlights how these things can escalate, right? What starts as maybe dark humor or just bravado can pick up speed.
And then there was another student.
Yes, another student gave a different reason for being part of it. They told police they were in the conversation because they didn't want the others to think they were weird and not wanting to do it.
Peer pressure. The fear of being the odd one out.
Exactly. That's a powerful force at that age. They also said they didn't think the others would actually go through with it, and they didn't really want to be involved.
So discomfort, but overridden by the need to fit in? What about the third student you mentioned?
That student's account is also interesting. They initially thought the talk about killing the classmate was just, joking. Found it uncomfortable, but maybe didn't grasp the reality of it.
Until?
Until they were actually assigned a role in the plan, the role of guard. That's when, according to the student, they realized they were serious.
That must have been a terrifying moment, when the abstract threat suddenly feels very concrete because you've been given a job to do.
Precisely. It's that shift from uncomfortable talk to, oh, wait, this is actually happening and I have a part, a real turning point.
So with these serious allegations, what actually happened next? What were the consequences? Let's start with the victim's family.
Right. The report mentions the victim's parent. She told the police she wanted to aid in prosecution of the students.
Understandable. A clear desire for accountability.
Absolutely. For that family, this wasn't just kids messing around. It was a credible, terrifying threat, and they wanted the legal system involved.
And were there legal consequences for the accused students?
Yes, all four of them. 2 were 10, 2 were 11, they were arrested.
On what charges?
1 count of threatening and 1 count of disorderly conduct for each of them.
Were they detained?
No. They were released into their parents' custody. They were also suspended from school with expulsion pending.
Okay, so released to parents, facing school expulsion, and these charges. That seems like a fairly standard approach for juveniles in this kind of situation.
It often is, yes.
Yes.
Especially for first offenses or threats where the act wasn't carried out. The focus tends to be on parental supervision, school discipline, and maybe intervention services rather than long-term detention, given their age. Rehabilitation is usually prioritized.
Now, you mentioned earlier the starkly different reactions. This part of the report is, well, it's quite something.
It really is. It highlights a very unsettling contrast. 3 of the students and their families apparently showed remorse. The reports say those students apologized.
Okay, remorse, apologies. That seems like a somewhat expected or hoped for reaction.
Right. But then there's the 4th student, implicitly, the one with the alleged motive, the girl who felt cheated on.
And her reaction.
According to the police report, she and her parent did not appear to be fazed.
Not phased.
That's the phrase used. And it gets more specific. The report apparently notes this student was seen smiling, laughing, and making excuses for what she did.
Smiling and laughing. While being questioned about allegedly plotting to kill someone.
That's what was reported.
Yeah.
And that lack of remorse, especially standing next to the apologies from the others, is probably the most chilling aspect of the whole thing.
Definitely. What does that kind of reaction even suggest?
Well, without diagnosing anyone, that kind of behavior, the smiling, laughing, the lack of visible upset or empathy in such a serious context, it's a significant red flag.
Yeah.
Child psychologists look at things like emotional regulation, understanding consequences, empathy, or the lack thereof. It raises questions about whether this was just incredibly poor judgment for the whole group, or if there might be deeper individual issues for that particular child.
And it certainly makes you wonder about the appropriate response or intervention needed there.
Absolutely. It complicates the picture significantly.
Did the school make any official statement beyond their initial actions?
They did. Legacy Traditional School put out a statement. They emphasized, that student safety is their top priority, standard procedure, and that they immediately addressed the incident. They also mentioned federal student privacy laws, FERPA, which means they can't discuss specific disciplinary actions against individual students publicly.
Right, standard practice.
But they did reiterate that their student code of conduct is clear.
Yeah.
Threats can lead to discipline, including expulsion.
So basically, assuring the community they acted are bound by privacy laws that have policies in place for this kind of thing.
Pretty much. It's the careful line schools have to walk, ensuring safety, following legal privacy rules, and maintaining community trust.
Okay, so we've walked through a really disturbing sequence of events here. A plot allegedly hatched by 5th graders, discovered thanks to a peer, investigated swiftly, leading to arrests and suspensions, and then these very different reactions.
Yeah.
So the final thought to leave our listeners with today. Thinking about those reactions, especially that reported lack of remorse from one student contrasted with the others, what does that really tell us? What does it suggest about how complex it is to understand things like intent, empathy, and consequences in childhood?
That's the core question, isn't it? How do we interpret these signs? And perhaps more importantly, how might these early indicators play out later? How can they, or should they, be addressed as these kids grow up?
Something profound to really sit with. A lot to think about there.